Check, check. Yeah, I got echo immediately.
Yes, sir.
Echo, echo. Yeah. Yeah. It's real bad. Ooh. Ah. Ooh. Can you hear us when we're unmuted?
The only time we hear you is when you're muted.
Is there any way to turn us all the way down in our headphones?
Yeah.
And then why don't we go
Now you got nothing in your headphones.
right?
Right.
So why don't you go like one headphone? Can you hear us on the stream still?
Yeah.
So let's go one headphone so we can hear each other. Does that work?
Yeah, I mean,
Go back in and unmute yourself on that.
I'm not in StreamYard or anything.
Oh, yeah.
Jump back in and unmute it.
Make sure you're unmuted.
So you can hear us. You can hear me right now.
Yeah.
Okay. We good? Are we still live? All right.
Boom, boom. One headphone.
One headphone.
Listen,
We got it.
I'm like Nas with one mic. I'm doing Nas with one headphone.
Yeah, we're doing some DJ stuff right here. No, we got to make it work. It's all right. We're back with you here. Apologize about technical difficulties here on the post-game spread. I apologize more if you heard our conversation about English accents while we were figuring things out.
We're in America. We're fine.
It's fine. We'll be all right. We'll also be all right because Nebraska won 28-14 over Louisiana Tech. As I mentioned, that you probably didn't hear it through having some technical issues. That's a win streak, ladies and gentlemen.
It's 2 in a row. And like we said before, we were, kicked off. 3 is possible. Technically, it could happen, Rob.
So I know there was a time under previous coaching regimes where we were led to believe it's illegal to win 3 games in a row. I've been informed recently that is not the case. That it is legal.
You can do that.
And even encouraged.
Like, you're not going to be hung.
Yeah, you're not going to get the SMU death penalty if you win 3 games in a row.
You're not going to get the chair.
No.
You can do these things.
Yeah, you should, and you should. I think you should actually.
Right.
I would actively encourage them to do the things of winning 3 games in a row. It is going to be tough next week, obviously, with Michigan, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. Before we do that, I want to remind you, you can join us on YouTube, Twitter, either the No Block, No Rock Twitter and YouTube or Hurrdat Sports. We are live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar. If you didn't hear, that's Jared Hall.
Hello, I am Jared Hall.
From the No Block, No Rock podcast. I'm Ravi Lulla from Hurrdat Sports. You can also hear me on David Betting Show with Ravi Lulla weekdays on AM 590. It was not the prettiest win in the world. There was a little bit of a grinder nature to the win.
It's one of those where, like, as a Husker fan, for me, I'm going to take any win I can get. I have zero right to say that win wasn't pretty enough.
Yeah, we've lost rights to complaining about how it looks.
If anything,
yeah,
I might be different in this. I would say the uglier, the better. I like ugly wins because you go through adversity.
Yes.
And it shows. There's proof of concept that you go through crappy things. Mm-hmm. Crappy things happen to you.
And you can overcome.
And you can actually pull a dub out and add an extra number to that W side of the record instead of the L side. It's possible.
It is possible. And, it's easy to be a front runner, right? Like, it's easy to go up 21-0 in the first quarter. You punch them in the mouth against an overmatched team, and boom, it's over before everybody gets back to their seats, right? Mm-hmm. That's easy. And listen, I would love to have some of those at some point, just if we're being totally honest. Sure. I'm not exclusively looking for the ugly wins, but I like that they can get the ugly wins.
Yeah.
This is part of the process to me is you don't get to win pretty until you've learned to win ugly.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's part of the, Matt Rule talks all the time about, hey, we have to earn the right to win. We have to earn the right to play the next game. We're not entitled to anything. We don't deserve anything, right? You have to earn the right to win pretty. And Nebraska's not there yet. So I'll take all the ugly wins you can throw over.
And especially you consider it's year 1.
Absolutely.
And
it's supposed to be ugly now. That's part of it, right?
They were technically a 21 point favorite. A little bold.
Depends on what book you're. But it was a 21-point game in the fourth quarter until the garbage time touchdown after the hour-long delay.
It's almost like, they're playing. Oh, there's still football left.
Yeah, it's like, know how hard it would be to stay checked in at that point.
Oh, yeah.
And especially, listen, I'm not the most mature guy in the world. If you're 20, 21 years old, you're up 21 points, there's 8.5 minutes left in the game, you have to start cranking it back up again after an hour delay. Like, I get it. I'm not concerned about that at all.
I'll just say I'm glad they were up by as many as they were up by.
Yeah, if they had gone in and it was 14-7, I would not have felt like super dupes comfortable there. But as it was,
super dupes.
As it was, it's a meaningless garbage time touchdown. And there were, I was a little frustrated at times with the tackling on defense. I didn't think that was great. But if you look at the numbers still, they gave up, 350 yards of total offense? Is that even, I think, and a a bunch of those came on that last drive, 338 total offense.
Yeah, and
46 yards on 46 yards on the ground.
we made this. You and I were talking earlier, watching the game. It's like you watch the defense, and it seemed like a lot of the great things in weeks 1, 2, and 3, kind of reverting back to old habits a little bit, not making sure tackles in the open field. Louisiana Tech had shifty guys, as you well know.
And really good, honestly, really good schemes to get those guys into space.
Yeah,
like that's
absolutely.
what Sonny Cumbie does. That's what all those air raid guys do. That's what, and a little bit different conceptually than what Colorado was doing, even though they're both kind of these spread it out teams, whatever, like the manner in which they do it's different.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of that was probably to be expected. I still would have liked to see I would still would have liked it to be a little bit cleaner than it was.
Absolutely.
And I thought they cleaned it up as they went along.
They did. As the game went along, I think you saw it on both sides of the ball. First half, looked a little rough on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're just sticking with defense, the fact that they only gave up 7 points. Like if you want to go back a year ago, I mean, you look at Georgia Southern.
I was like Georgia Southern.
My goodness,
Pretty similar concepts to what we were seeing.
Yeah, similar concepts.
A lot of the same guys on the defense.
Yeah,
A lot of the same guys. I mean, a lot of the guys we're seeing on the field were on the team, but weren't actually playing last year.
Right.
Your Omar Browns, your Deshaun Singletons, your Nash Hutmakers, your Blaze Gunnarsons. Like a lot of those guys were on the team.
Yeah.
Like they were there. Your Mackay Bears. Like a lot of those guys were there.
Yep.
And just weren't getting on the field for whatever reason. And Georgia Southern with a similar concept and maybe a little bit more talent. Like that's fine, whatever. Got whatever they wanted against Nebraska. So there is year-over-year improvement, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but even in a game where we were frustrated by how the defense looked a little bit, still dramatically better than what we had seen.
Yeah, and I think you take the first 3 weeks, and I think you can make a sound judgment that this defense, like you said, is improved.
Mm-hmm.
Their coordinator, I mean, pay the man. I think.
Yeah, whatever he wants.
And I don't know if this week will be called an anomaly. Like, of course, I'm going to give you a depressing stat.
Uh-oh.
We are already 1/3 through the season. Already 1/3.
Yeah, that bums me out a little bit.
But I think what you saw in the first 3 games, I think that is the true defense. And what you saw today, I don't know if you want to call it a letdown or an anomaly, but I don't think you take what you saw today and you think, okay, this is the defense.
You don't throw out the first 3 weeks because of what you saw today. And again, to be clear, it wasn't that bad.
No, it really wasn't.
The first until they came back from the weather delay, I think they were under 300 yards of total offense. Like that's a pretty good performance.
They were getting stops. Yeah, they were.
And especially in the second half, they had really cranked it up a little bit here. So I'm not discouraged by the defense. It was a little frustrating in the moment, but when you look at the overall kind of stats and how the game went, really not that bad.
Yeah.
On the offensive side of the ball, there were some frustrations there as well, right? Early on, especially, the offense looked a little stagnant, kind of like we saw last week against Northern Illinois. It took a little while to get going, tied at 7 at halftime. Here's what I really, really liked. Second half, I believe they only had 5 pass attempts. At least Harvard only had 5 pass attempts.
That sounds right. There was a hell of a lack of passing attempts.
Which I'm totally okay with. And Chubba only had 6 total pass attempts in the first half. They only threw it 12 times in the first half, so it's not like they were airing it out in the first half. But against a team that has struggled to stop the run in their first 4 games, because Louisiana Tech had an extra game in there, and for a team that had consistently gotten about 5 yards to carry in their first 3 games, I like that they really drilled in on that part of the game plan, because we're going to read off some numbers for you here real quick. And these could have been dramatically better, but you had 3 huge runs called back with holding penalties. You had a 70-plus yarder by Harbor. Yeah. You had, and then a couple 40 to 50 yarders by Grant.
Anthony Grant got called back.
That were called back, right? So again, holdings and those are real and happen and whatever, but it could have been even more dramatic. Is my point. You still had 312 total yards rushing, 6.5 yards per carry, 19 carries, 157 yards for Harbor, 72-yard long. This is the one that I'm really excited about. Okay, Anthony Grant, 22 carries, 135 yards, 6.1 yards per carry. Here's the best part. His long was only 34.
Beautiful.
So you can't, because some people, and listen, the 72-yarder for Heinrich Harburg, that happened. You can't just take it away like it didn't happen, right?
Right.
But some people will be like, oh, we got to take the long one out of there and see what happens. You take the long one out for Anthony Grant, he still averaged 5 yards a carry, right? He's still at like 20 for 100.
Steady Eddie.
He was so good today. And honestly, he was a captain before the game. You love the progression he's made from not playing against Colorado, first of all, having a huge fumble against Minnesota, not playing against Colorado, getting a little bit of redemption last week, to being forced into a position where he has to be the guy now and really shining through.
Yeah. You look at why he was benched. Why was he benched? Can't hang on to the ball. Last year, I cannot recall one fumble that Anthony Grant had last year. I'm sorry, I just can't.
He probably had one, but
yeah, I'm sure he did, but
I
you get my
remember.
point. Like, that was not an issue with him.
Sure.
And so you're thinking, did he have like a bad week? Did he break up with his girlfriend? Did he have something going on in his personal life that just kind of distracted him for a little bit? And you see Grant come out, and he does very well with Northern Illinois. And of course, he has the probably should have been called targeting run. But no, he looked really good against St. IU. And when you hear about these injuries that came out of nowhere, they seriously,
especially the Gabe Irvin one.
Dave Irvin's out there doing post-game interviews,
Yeah.
and you're like,
I don't even think he knew how injured he was.
no, I don't think he did.
Like the Ramir one, you see him in street clothes after halftime, and you're like, yeah, that kind of feels not great.
Yeah, he was not in pads the second half on the sidelines. You're like, okay,
Not a great sign, right? Gabe Irvin came back in after he got hurt. Like, I don't think he knew he was hurt. On the morning show, Damon was talking about how he was talking to EJ Barthel after the game, and it didn't seem like he knew. Like, I don't think they had any idea the extent of that injury in the moment. So that one came as a pretty huge shock to us. It seemed like to them, and I would imagine to the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so for Anthony Grant to kind of rise up out of that situation, to have the performance he did today, first of all, you feel terrific for the guy.
Yes.
Because he was in the doghouse. Both probably seemingly with the coaching staff and with fans.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of an arranged marriage in the sense that, hey, we don't have a lot of other choices now. But Anthony Grant seems to be the guy. And it, at least for week one of the experiment, it worked out.
Yeah. Like you said, he went from the doghouse, I think, both in terms of the coach's office and the fan perspective. And now he has to be a dog, D-A-W-G.
Yeah.
Like, he's got to step up and be that guy.
Yeah.
Tell me he didn't.
Oh, he
Tell me.
absolutely did.
He's done ever since the huge Minnesota fumble. He's done everything, and he's looked very good doing it. And I think and the thing too is, as we go forward, we're going to play more Big Ten teams.
We're going to play better teams, right?
He's going to get more and more carries. He had 22 today.
I'd like to see him pushing up towards 25.
Yeah.
I'd like to see whether it's Harburg or Sims pushing up towards 22.
Okay.
Listen, you're going to have to run those guys.
Yeah.
Because I want that honest to God.
Yeah.
I want that pass number to be like 12 to 15.
Ravi, we talked about it during the game.
Like, I want a low pass number.
People are like, why you can't run the quarterback that much because they're – listen, this is what they do best.
Yeah.
Ravi, you brought up guys like Eric Crouch. Guys,
Lord.
just
Smaller guys.
smaller guys. The thing with Heinrich, does he know how to take hits? Maybe not as well. Like, he lowers his shoulder, which might not last as long as like an Eric Crouch, who was a little more like
Eric Crouch was like a savant at not getting hit squarely.
You could tell he's a guy that's like been doing it a very long time.
Eric Crouch was the opposite of Taylor Martinez. You know how no matter what Taylor Martinez did, which congratulations on the Hall of Fame, by the way.
Well deserved.
No matter what he did in terms of trying to juke, it seemed like whatever he did, he juked directly into a hit, right? So he was the polar opposite. When you look at that, like Taylor Martinez ran the ball a ton. Yeah, he got banged up a little bit. he still played most of his games in his career.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, he missed a handful. He wasn't always 100%. But he ran a ton, was terrible at taking hits.
The worst.
Like, literally the worst Division I football player I've ever seen at taking hits.
He's
I'm
running,
not trying to be mean.
He's running down the sideline, like, straight up.
Yes.
Like, dude, no.
Like at least Heinrich is delivering the hits, right? That's a different thing than just being as exposed as possible to getting smashed.
Listen, you recall Taylor running down just a seam in the middle of the field. He's all by himself, but he's going like 50 miles an hour, and he's just straight up.
Yes.
Love him. Well deserved. Well deserved.
Congrats on the Hall of Fame. Like, so happy for him, especially because he kind of got a lot of hate during his time here. Like,
he did.
Literally thrilled for him. Happy that he is back in Nebraska and there's no hard feelings or anything. You know how that can get sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
It was awesome to see him and Amart at the same time on the field today.
They are not the same person.
They're not related. Also.
Not related, not the same person.
Yes.
And the thing, too, is you watch Heinrich run.
Yeah.
Now, high and tight Harvard.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the coaches probably had a discussion with him like, hey, Heinrich, don't fumble the ball.
Everyone needs you to hold on to
You
that.
see that guy running like this?
He had that thing right here. Boom. You would have had to take away his ribs in order to get that football from him. And I think that's a penalty. I'm not 100% sure, but physically removing a rib from a player I don't think is legal. I think that qualifies under unnecessary roughness.
Yeah.
I haven't looked it up, but I'm pretty sure. But no, he's very good on the ball security. And listen, delivering hits hurts less than just taking them. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm worried less about Heinrich Harvard. And listen, he's a big dude. What is he, like 6'5", 210, 215? He's a big dude. Jeff Sims is a big dude. Jeff Sims is 6'4", 220. And here's the best part. Okay, yeah. There's two of them. You can run them 20 times a game because you have two very big quarterbacks. Uh-huh. Now, if one of them gets hurt, maybe you back off a little bit. But as long as you've got two guys that can run that offense, seemingly run the ball effectively, both almost equally, right?
Yeah.
Like, I thought, I thought last week that maybe Jeff Sims had a little more big playability. Well, we saw Heinrich house two of them today. Only one of them counted, but they were both 70-plus yards.
Let's be real. Come on.
Yeah.
He could do it.
Yeah. So, I no longer have that worry.
Yeah.
I don't have, run those guys 20, 25 times a game. That's your best offense. That's your best offense.
So, Ravi, you and I were talking during the game, and during the offseason, you heard Jeff Sims looks like a linebacker.
Yeah.
Heinrich Harvard, even though he didn't say those exact words, he looks like Jeff Sims.
Well, and he looks like a tight end. You know how I know he looks like a tight end? Because they lined him up at tight end.
He played him at tight
end.
They
literally played him at tight end in game one. So that's how I know they think he can take hits.
Run them.
Yes. You have two guys that can do that.
Please, God.
Don't try and save them. Because guess what? You're not at a point as a program where you get to hold things back.
Thank you.
Because you aren't we're talking about earning the right to win, right? Mm-hmm. Holding things back is for people that have already earned that right. Nebraska's not there. Nebraska has to earn that right every week. And part of doing that is putting your best players, like Jeff Sims and Heinrich Harburg, are top 5 athletes on the team. Both of them, I think. Right?
I think that is totally
top 10 at the worst.
At the worst, yes.
Top 5 on offense for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you're telling me you've got 2 top 5 offensive athletes and you want to hold things back because you're afraid of them getting hurt? Are you afraid of Billy Kemp getting hurt? No, you're running that dude over the middle. You're running him on the goal line. You're getting that guy the ball, right? As much as you can. You've got to run those guys.
This team in 2023. Now, in 2025, we might be different.
I don't know. Hope to God it is, right?
You would you want an ideal scenario. 2025 going forward is going to be different.
You'd like to have skill position guys where you only have maybe you run your quarterback 7-8 times a game. That'd be terrific. Nebraska's not there right now.
2023, your quarterbacks have to be if it's 30, okay, maybe a little nutty.
But 27, 20 to 25, I think is the number.
I think that is.
I genuinely think that's the number. I think you need 20 to 25 out of the quarterback, whoever it is, right? Because we don't know moving forward. We were told today that Jeff Sims still not 100%. He came in for one play. Looked a little helter-skelter. Not really sure.
It looked a little shaky.
Little off.
Yeah. He's on
we
the
saw-
sidelines limping.
We saw Chubba Purdy out there for a series. I don't think he's in the equation.
Your thoughts on Chubba?
I'm not a Chubba guy.
I'm just.
I watch a lot of Florida State football.
Yeah.
So I had some feelings on Chubba before he got here.
So you've paid attention probably more
Longer than most Nebraska fans.
Right.
Because of watching so much Florida State football. And I wasn't a Chubba guy when he got here. I believe them when they say he's gotten better because Heinrich's gotten a lot better. Right? Heinrich in the spring game versus Heinrich now is a different human being.
night and day.
Yeah, it seems like a totally different quarterback. The guy that's on the spring game, probably needs to go play tight end. Like he needs to Blake Bell this thing and get out of the backfield. That's a deep cut.
That's really deep.
But the Heinrich Barber we've seen the last 2 weeks, listen, is he the most polished passer in the world? Absolutely not. But if you can keep that thing, it's got to be under 20 pass attempts a game. Like that is a hard rule for me, for either guy, honestly. I'd love it to be like 12 to 18.
Yeah, he had 17 today.
It felt a little much.
It did feel like much. And, there were a couple passes in there, especially to Kemp, where he slung it in there.
Yeah.
And it looked really good.
Yes.
But those were the, like 8 yards. Boom.
Yeah.
Snap it. Now, there were a couple deep balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to say yikes, but it's pretty close to yikes.
I don't feel good about the deep ball on either side there, really.
Billy Kemp going deep, I don't love it.
Yeah,
Tommy Hill being your deep threat, I don't love it.
Yeah, I would love to see Malachi Coleman in there. I would love to see – I don't know if Marcus Washington got banged up. We didn't see him a lot late. So I'll be interested to see if he got banged up a little bit. He had a drop early. I don't think he probably got benched for that. I'm guessing maybe got banged up.
Yeah, and that's another throw where if Marcus does make that catch, it's like, okay, that drive keeps going because that was a 3rd and 9 play.
It was a nice throw. It was on the chest, on the money. Good throw.
We even said live, like, what more?
Yeah, because I thought initially on the live shot, I thought it might have been a low throw. And they showed the replay, and Washington goes down to his knees and hits him in the chest, and it's like you got to get that ball.
Yeah.
But there's inconsistency, right, with the passing game with Harburg and with Sims for that matter. I thought Sims cleaned it up a little bit against Colorado when we had the one interception. I think Harburg has had one interceptable throw. He had one last week. He might have had 2 today.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
He had one deep one that probably should have gotten picked, but to Kev.
Yeah, the dude's. Did you see that dude's arms?
Yeah,
it's like he didn't play football before.
Yeah. Well,
that looks like me trying to make an interception.
That's one of those like cliches, like he's playing defense for a reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's why he's not playing wide receiver.
Yeah, that was.
I'm trying to think. There may have been another one, but so I think they're about equal in terms of Jeff Sims throwing against Colorado versus Heinrich throwing the last 2 weeks in terms of interceptable throws. You can live with 1 or 2 a game because they're probably not all going to get picked. Like that's just the nature of things.
I mean, that's football.
And you're not going to throw. You're not going to bat 1,000 on good throws, right?
Right.
So you can live with that. It's the things that are unforced that you have to clean up. And I thought Sims cleaned up the unforced throwing errors against Colorado. Obviously, he had the snap issues.
Yeah.
If he can clean up the snap issues, because I can't imagine it's going to continue if he plays.
And of course, I remember the rollout to the right and the interception versus Colorado.
Yes.
The rollout to the right, and
that's an atrocious.
Like you called that pick as soon as he's rolling to the right, and you see the defensive back following him.
That's an atrocious throw.
It is.
But it was his one bad throw of the game. Really, I mean, to be honest. So that's something I can live with. You hope that the one bad throw doesn't turn into a pick like that, but you can live with that. So whether it's Sims or Harburg moving forward and against Michigan, I think I'd be real comfortable at 12 to 15. I can get to 18. If we get over 20, I start getting a little I start to pucker a little bit, if I'm being honest with you. I don't love it. I really want him at almost a 70-30 run to pass ratio at this point.
70 to 30. I mean, look, it's not the 90s, but this is what you got to do.
I mean,
in 2023.
With what your team looks like right now, legitimately.
You got Billy Kemp. The first game versus Minnesota was a non-factor.
Yeah.
Thomas Fedoni against Minnesota, a non-factor. But you're seeing these guys get a little more involved in the offense.
Fedoni had a nice touchdown today.
He did. And
even though it looked like he was like an 18-wheeler trying to turn that corner.
Yeah.
It was weird. He did eventually. I thought he was going to run straight out of bounds. I was like, what's happening here? I just couldn't figure out.
He got there.
He looked like trying to juke in NFL blitz on like an N64. I I was like, we need more. Where's the button that makes you juke?
Which pixel is the?
Yeah.
No,
So I don't know. If his like knee got stuck. I don't know what happened. It was weird. Hope he doesn't shush me for that. But it was a nice play. He he got it done eventually. But like, so Billy Kemp starting to emerge. Thomas Fedoni starting to emerge. But outside of that, like Marcus Washington's looked okay when he's gotten the ball. I don't know what's going on with him in terms of I didn't see him for much of the second half.
no.
So I don't know if I missed it, if
Yeah.
he wasn't getting targeted. So we'll have to see on Marcus Washington. But if you don't have anyone outside of Fedoni and Kemp, like, why are you throwing more than 15 times a game?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If you're at 20,
You're probably doing some things you don't need to be doing.
yeah.
And honestly, even at 15 to 18, you're probably having to manufacture not trick plays necessarily, but unique looks to take deep shots, right? Because whether it's I saw this really cool play on Friday night that Miller North ran against Southeast, because obviously they run a lot of option, and I think Nebraska's kind of doing a lot of those types of looks, whether it's a zone read into an RPO, which basically acts like a triple option, where we did see it run some true triple option as well.
Okay.
Miller North started doing this kind of a fake into the triple option and then a toss sweep to the other side. And then they did a fake toss sweep into a QB rollout and had it wide open. And like those are the types of things where it's like not really a trick play, but to manufacture some deep looks where if your guys just aren't either getting open or your quarterbacks aren't able to make kind of throws into a phone booth that are a little bit more challenging, I think they need to start manufacturing some of those looks to keep the defense spread out a little bit, keep them honest a little bit. Because if you're going to run it 70% of the time like I want them to, you got to loosen them up occasionally.
And of course, like Harburg, you see him go off for these runs, even though if you were called back, it's still on tape.
Yeah.
Michigan is seeing this. Harburg's got big playability. He's a threat.
Yeah.
He could run. Keep your eye on him.
Yeah. You get and they start creeping closer to the line of scrimmage, start stacking the box a little bit more, start bringing those guys in. If you put something on tape where you have a counter to it, so Nebraska's put the big plays, the running plays on tape, right? Now, if you have a counter to it into a pass play, to me, that's where you can kind of start taking your shots because your guys just aren't either winning one-on-one battles or quarterbacks aren't able to get when they are winning.
And of course, if we're going to say, hey, go deep, you still got to be able to make that throw.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Fedoni, his touchdown against NIU, I mean, that was a pop pass.
Yeah.
If you recall Michigan a few years ago with Adrian and Austin Allen, one of their touchdowns was a pop pass. Yeah. It's just something like that.
And I'm totally okay with that. Yeah. But you got to give them a little bit different looks because right now the skill position players for Nebraska aren't just beating guys down the field.
Yeah.
And if they are, the quarterbacks can't get it to them. Right. I don't think either of these guys have the accuracy on the downfield balls to just get guys that are even a step ahead,
right?
An accurate throw. Like you need to get these guys, you have to manufacture these guys being pretty open in order to feel decent about that throw, right? So that's kind of what I would like to see moving forward and hopefully I would imagine they're saving some of that stuff for Michigan. I would imagine they've got a few of those in the playbook for Michigan.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to the earning the right to win, like how much are they showing versus not showing, and are they going to be cute here and there? It's like, what do you hide against La Tech that you're going to show against Michigan?
Right.
But I'm just like, at this point, guys, for me, I was a 5-7 record guy.
Okay, big pessimist over here.
Listen, I am a realist. But pessimist, absolutely. Oh my God, I can't deny that. But I'm just like, don't hide things. Please don't hide. Just put your players in the best position to win. If Harburg needs to run 28 times a game, he's got to run 28 times a game. If Jeff Sims has to run with this high ankle sprain,
hopefully getting better. Because you want to have him as an option, I think.
He's not going to start against Michigan.
I don't think so.
You don't think so. I mean, you can't imagine that, right?
I can't, but at the same time, talking to DB this week, he goes, that's not as big of a deal as you think it is.
Okay.
Because if it were Harburg in the situation, it would be, right? Harburg hasn't played in Michigan before. Harburg hasn't been in that situation. Jeff Sims has played Clemson. He's played Florida State. He's played Miami. He's got 3 years of starting experience.
It's true.
Michigan's not as much of a stretch for him experience-wise as it would be for Harbaugh. And I get that.
That's
I really do. That's a totally fair point.
Absolutely
Because in
fair.
my mind, I was like, you're going to let this guy sit for 2 weeks, be rusty, and then go out there against Michigan? That's kind of not putting him in a great position to succeed, right? But then David was like, hey, he's been in these positions before. Not for Nebraska, but he's been in these positions before.
And not to speak for DB, but I think DB would also make the point that he won the starting job for a reason.
Yes.
Because they had those many months
Yeah.
of
I've
prep.
seen them both in practice.
And I guess this kind of goes back to practice versus a game.
Yeah.
Like,
That's the tough part, right?
and what if a guy's really good in practice, but during
And
a game,
not a
he
gamer.
suffers?
Not a gamer.
Not a gamer, but then that asks the question, like, what's the purpose of practice then?
Right.
If your best practice players aren't going to play. So, yeah, that's why Matt Rule's getting paid almost $10 million a year to make these kinds of decisions.
Just shy of.
Just shy.
No, I totally understand that. And I think I asked him that question because you've got guys legitimately that are great practice players that have a hard time translating that to games.
Mhm.
And you've got guys that are mediocre practice players that are gamers, right? I don't know if you watched the Johnny Manziel documentary.
I have not.
That's a great example of a guy who didn't practice and barely practiced at all, to be fair.
Sure.
But when he did, mediocre, and went out there and just killed it in games, right? That's like, listen, I'm not suggesting anyone try and replicate Johnny Manziel because there's a lot of issues there. But from just a football standpoint, right? That's an extreme example of what we're talking about.
Johnny Manziel is the exception to the rule. Young kids out there, you are not Johnny Manziel. You're not going to win a Heisman. Listen, Ravi,
Yeah.
if they're watching us,
They probably are.
they probably aren't going to win a Heisman.
Or-
Manziel.
We're terrific children's programming. So people forget that.
You need to practice your little butt off, okay?
Well, and here's the thing, though. Like, there are examples where guys, coaching staffs don't totally see the entire picture with the guy, right? And some of it's reps, right? Like, if you come in with Jeff Sims as a starter and he's getting starter reps with the ones and like Heinrich Harburg, who they admitted was a 3 or a 4 at one point, not that long ago. So he's getting 3 or 4 reps. He's getting scout team reps, starts getting maybe 2 or 3 reps, and that's where he's at. That's a different evaluation than the guy getting the reps with the ones, right?
Sure.
And so there's variables there that if you're not in the practice and in the room, it's hard to understand. But also look at this, okay? Brock Purdy was the 3rd string quarterback for the 49ers last year. Would you take Brock Purdy over Jimmy Garoppolo? I'm a 49ers fan. Would you take Brock Purdy over Jimmy Garoppolo?
How can you not?
Would you take Brock Purdy over Trey Lance? I think everybody in the world would, right? At this point, you
What are you doing here?
know what I mean? But like,
No, you're right. No, you're right.
Kyle Shanahan, a great offensive mind, like genuinely one of the best in the NFL. Right
Wonder
now.
Kid. For
Wonder
sure.
Kid. No, I'm sure.
Well, I thought. See, now people say Wonder Kid, Wonder Kid.
I was doing the
he's a
Ted
very-
Lasso. I was doing the Ted Lasso.
You're right. Okay, sorry, I don't watch that. So.
Oh my god.
It's too positive for me. I'm sorry. You said I'm a pessimist. I hate Ted Lasso. So
I think
know I'm a
you need
pessimist.
some. I think you need some positivity in your life.
23rd.
Probably. So go to therapy and then watch Ted Lasso. Honestly, Ted Lasso is like therapy without the copay.
I'll pay that Apple. That's my therapist.
$10 a month or whatever. Like that's your copay. That's way cheaper. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Dr. Ted.
No, but so if Kyle Shanahan, a really bright offensive mind, could have seen those guys in practice for months and still thought that Brock Purdy was the 3rd string quarterback when this is what he looks like on Sundays, which Thursday is not a great example because he kind of looked terrible.
I don't even think it looked that bad. But no, I'm sorry.
But anyway, so he still has not lost a game as a starter yet. I mean, I'm not counting Philadelphia because he played like 1 series.
Yeah.
And then those super.
What is he, like 8-0, 9-0, something?
He's 8-0 in the regular season. He's 10-0 in games he played the entire game in. Like, that dude was in the same room as Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, and he was the 3rd guy. So I get that. Again, that's an exception, right? But it does happen. It happens where you just don't see it with a guy until you see it, right? And maybe that's what happened with Heinrich Harburg and Jeff Sims. Maybe not. Maybe Jeff Sims, when he's right, is better than Heinrich Harburg still. We don't really know because we haven't seen them in apples-to-apples situations, right? We had 2 Power 5 opponents on the road with Jeff Sims. We had 2 5 opponents at home for Heinrich Harburg.
Yeah.
Heinrich Harburg had the better situation.
It's true.
right? So we don't know. I would have loved to see Jeff Sims healthy today. So we had Northern Illinois, Hunter Harburg, Louisiana Tech, Jeff Sims, and had the closest comparison we were going to get. So we would have a better idea of, hey, who's actually handling the offense a little bit better.
Yeah, and I kind of made the point a few weeks ago on the No Block No Rock podcast that
Smash that like and follow button.
Smash it, smash
Hammer. Pound that button.
please, pound
Pound the button.
pound away.
Pound the rock.
I'm here to be pounded. We are here. Oh boy, we're not on the radio. No,
Podcast only. You can say whatever you want.
Well, I had made the point that playing at Nebraska, it just sometimes it can get to a person.
Mhm.
You're on the spotlight, and with this program, I think for the past 20-ish years, you could say that they've had the gifts, right? And
As a program,
as a program as a whole.
so you're talking across coaching staffs, across quarterbacks, across everybody. The entire athletic football program is at the Yips.
And trying to just relate that to Sims. It's like he comes from Georgia Tech.
Mhm.
Nebraska and Georgia Tech are a little different when it comes to the amount of attention you're going to receive. And
Sure.
look,
They're an afterthought in Atlanta and in Georgia.
how many talk shows like this happen after a Nebraska game versus a Georgia Tech game?
Sure.
Just it takes a different breed of guy to play quarterback at Nebraska. And Zach Taylor, not too many Zach Taylors out there. Taylor Martinez, there's something about Taylor Martinez where he could check out every once in a while.
He never totally seemed comfortable, to be fair. Like he seemed, especially with the media part of it.
Yeah.
Like, and we kind of laughed at the sound clips and stuff like that because they were legitimately funny.
They were.
But
like to play Rick Road game.
I got chills throughout my body. But you could tell he was not a guy comfortable with that part of the job.
Yeah.
Like if he could have played quarterback in Nebraska without all that stuff, he would have loved it, I bet.
A couple Big 12 conference championships.
I think he was an offensive player of the year at one point, like a conference player. Like he was legitimately really good here, and you could still tell he was never super comfortable in terms of that part of the job, right? And so it's really easy to. I mean, it's a fair point you make that maybe it's not for everybody, but maybe he was a kid that grew up in Nebraska who understands the temperature a little bit more. Maybe he's a little bit more suited to, because that's all he's ever known. Right? Like Hunter Harburg's only ever known like the attention you get as a Nebraska football player because he's seen it his entire life.
You could also twist that and say, look, Heinrich is aware of the spotlight that is on the quarterback. So he could have, even though it was against a group of 5 opponent, he's at home. He's got 85,000 plus staring at him, making sure he doesn't fumble a snap or throw an interception because you've got fans watching like this. When's your first mistake going to happen? And so you could argue that maybe he is a little mentally more prepared. I'm not in Jeff Sims' head. I don't want to make that.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. We're just speculating at what some of the differences might be because I think there's one thing we can say for sure, and that's there has to have been a difference between what they saw from Jeff Sims and Heinrich Harburg in practices for what they've seen in games. Right? Like there is a gap there somewhere. I don't know how big the gap is. I don't know how significant it is, but I have to assume that there is a difference between what they expected to see and what they have seen so far. And so we're trying to figure out what some of the reasons could be for that. And maybe understanding the nature of the job is half the battle for a guy like Heinrich versus a guy like Jeff Sims, who's just like, hey, I'm just trying to kind of not resurrect his career, but kind of redefine his career as a college quarterback and give him an opportunity to play in the NFL where not that Jeff Sims doesn't want to win. Obviously, he got a single-digit number. The coaches like what he's about. The players like what he's about. So this is not disparaging Jeff Sims at all. But maybe Hunter Harburg comes in from the mindset of like, the only thing I want to do is make Nebraska win football games.
Yeah, Heinrich doesn't have the burden of trying to disprove a narrative. Like maybe Jeff Sims. Look, Jeff Sims is not an idiot. He knows that he has this reputation of, hey, for every game, I throw an intercept. I started 25 games. I have 25 interceptions. Whatever that ratio is, I don't
It's
know it
almost
off the top of my
1-to-1, basically.
head. He knows.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
not dumb.
And he was a highly touted guy
Yeah.
who didn't perform up to that standard at Georgia Tech. So he's got some baggage coming into this situation. The only baggage Heinrich Haarberg has was, am I going to be a quarterback still? Like, literally, he asked the coaching staff that. He was like, do I need to move positions? And they're like, why don't you give it a shot?
Am I Fedoni now?
Yeah, it's like, am I the next Borkature? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he didn't have the baggage. He was kind of an afterthought as a recruit. He wasn't this highly touted, big 4-star guy going to an ACC school. He was this home state kid, kind of from a smaller school, Incarnate Catholic, that didn't have a lot of buzz. And last year was totally forgotten about as a potential in the quarterback situation, right? Like, he wasn't part of the equation at all. Was not part of the plan.
Laughed about.
It was
Giggled.
literally
Oh.
because it was Whipple, right? They're like, what about Haarberg and Torres? And he laughed.
Yeah.
Right. This is a guy that had almost 300 yards of total offense today, against 254. He had almost 300 last week, right about 250, I think, actually last week against Northern Illinois. It's like, this guy doesn't have the burden of expectations. This guy doesn't have the burden of trying to redefine his legacy. He's just trying to get out football. Honestly, just trying to get on the football field. And I think trying to make Nebraska win games. Like, there's not. And again, that's not to say anything bad about Jeff Sims, but they're coming from very different situations. And
There's
that
no ulterior motive that you need to worry about with Heinrich. Maybe Jeff Sims. Again, that's a huge assumption, but it's but he's got that on his shoulders, and you can't deny it. I don't think you can deny that.
I don't know if it's even an ulterior motive thing. I think it's just the result of your experiences. Like, we're all kind of the result of our past experiences.
There you go.
And even if we mean the best, right? Which I think Jeff Sims surely does. Like, I don't think Matt Rule would put him in these positions if he didn't, right? Like, if Jeff Sims didn't want what was best for his team and for Nebraska and for the program, right? But he's still the sum of his past experiences. Like, that's what's gotten him here. But so is Heinrich Haarberg. And the things that have gotten him to this point are very, very different.
Yeah,
And you just wonder how much that matters.
Yeah, Jeff Sims. They say that players transfer for a reason.
Yeah, everybody
So,
does,
like
right?
you said, every human being, whether they play football or not,
Yeah.
I see this as a teacher. I see it every day.
Yeah.
Your past experiences
Well, because you
make
guys
you the
get
person that you are.
notes, right? Like, you get notes from year to year
Absolutely.
about students, right? And sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing, right? Sometimes your expectations get set about a kid, and you're expecting him to be one way, and he's totally different, or they're totally different, or you expect him to be like this super high achiever, and maybe they got stuff going on at home, and like they don't turn out to be that thing. And so the thing that you expect of somebody and what they turn out to be can influence the way you treat that situation, right? Whether it's as a teacher, whether it's as a football coach, whether it's as a quarterback.
Sure.
And so it, to me, is, again, it's nobody's fault, but if there has to be a difference between what they see in practice and what they see in games, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's the difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because some of the mistakes that were made on Jeff Sims' part, even though they were against Power 5 teams on the road, a lot of them were snap related.
It felt unforced. It felt unforced, right?
Yeah. What do you do?
Well, that's a mental error, right? It's a mental
It's a
error.
mental error.
More than anything. And being totally honest, I don't know whose fault that is, right? I don't know if it's the center snapping
Motion
too early.
man.
I don't know if the motion man is the timing and motion right.
Right.
I don't know what. There was only one where Jeff Sims just dropped the ball without any other things happening there, right? The other two, you're looking at, you go, I don't know whose fault that is. Is it Gabe Ervin's fault because he didn't hold on to the football? Was that Jeff Sims' fault for not putting it where he was supposed to? I don't know. And honestly, no one else except for the people in that room really know. It's just a matter of how much does it matter in terms of fixing it and being able to correct those mistakes.
And that is something that I don't think I have the answer to. You don't have the answer to.
No, nobody does. I don't think Bill has the answer to.
Yeah, it's just one of those things
You have
where
to kind of just put it out there and see,
lay it out on
right?
the field. Put them out there. What do you get?
And what started this conversation is that going to happen against Michigan? I almost hope he's not quite 100% yet, so they don't have to make that decision for Michigan. Because I still think, I know DB said it wasn't a big deal. I still think that's a tough spot to put a guy in especially because even if he's got experiences, does he have experiences having those errors that he had in the first 2 weeks, sitting 2 weeks on it, not having anything else really to sit on for 2 weeks in terms of regaining confidence and then going and playing the best team in your conference? That's what I worry
The
about.
best team that you're going to play all year.
Yes, that's the best team Nebraska faces all year is this Saturday.
Imagine Jeff Sims, like in his mind, knowing my ankle hurts, and if I don't do well, like that's a lot of pressure on the guy. And of course, you got to factor
He probably is thinking this might be my last shot because if he doesn't play well against Michigan,
against Michigan of all teams.
you know the leash is going to be shorter now that Harburg has proved himself capable,
Tough,
right?
It's tough.
So that's a really tough position to put a guy in and to put yourself in, right? Because there's going to be a lot of pressure. And he's an elite athlete, so maybe he doesn't think this way. Maybe I do, and maybe that's why we're podcast boys and not elite athletes.
That's why we have headphones on halfway.
Yeah, that's why we have headphones on and not helmets, right? But there's in my mind, I'd be thinking, if I don't do it here, this is my last shot. Because the guy behind me has shown that he's capable.
And imagine him trying to do extra.
Yeah.
And that's where Matt Rule comes in and says, hey, Jeff,
Yeah.
I don't need you to beat Heisman.
I just need you to be you. I just need you to be you. Be the guy we saw in practice.
Right.
Right? But that's a lot to ask, and that's a lot to trust of a guy who maybe still has NFL aspirations, I'm sure, is maybe seeing that dream start to fall out of his grasp a little bit. That's a really tough spot to be in against Michigan. You can maybe be in that spot against Northwestern. You can maybe feel like maybe you can be there against Northwestern or Purdue. Michigan, that's a tough spot to be in. Now, maybe it raises his level of play to something we haven't seen yet. Maybe because he was basically always the guy at Georgia Tech. He was the guy in Nebraska from the minute he got here, basically. Yeah. Maybe that raises it to a level of Jeff Sims we've never seen before. Because some guys react that way. I don't know if he's one of those guys yet. I don't know if he knows if he's one of those guys yet.
Haven't seen it. How are we supposed to know? We haven't seen it. And
I think we're about to.
like
One way or another, I think we're about to.
you see Rutgers and Michigan play, and people are freaking out that could Rutgers do it? Oh, look at Michigan. They look bad. You guys, maybe I'm alone in this. I watched Rutgers versus Michigan in the first half. The whole time, I had zero doubt that Michigan was going to do Michigan things and pull out that win. A lot of people are going to watch that game and try to extrapolate something from that game. Michigan's going to do this against – listen, two separate games, different environments. The things that Michigan did today, chances are they're not going to do that in Lincoln. They're just not. They're a good team.
I will say,
Please, because I was going to ask you, was there something that you saw that maybe could be extrapolated?
I think some of the things that Rutgers was trying to do can work for Nebraska. In terms of some QB run game, Michigan looked like they weren't totally comfortable with how to defend that at times. It looked like they, on that first, I think it was the only touchdown for Rutgers, their safeties were really pressed up. Once that pass got in there on that little post to the house for 80, if you can get that ball in there, if you can get there before the safety's coming down from his help position, you might have something there. Now, can Sims or Harburg make that throw? We've seen Harburg make it a couple times. We've seen Sims make it a couple times. The timing is important. The precision is important. But there's things there, both in the QB run game, in the way that they defend the pass because of the QB run game, that I think Nebraska can take advantage of. And honestly, I have to give Damon credit on this because he was talking about it randomly this week. And I hadn't really heard anybody else talk about it. The way Michigan wants to play kind of lends itself to an ugly game.
Sure.
It certainly can. And if Nebraska is going to win this game, it's going to have to be one of those. Again, we haven't earned the right to win for it yet. But maybe we're getting to the point where you have the right to earn ugly.
Let's muck it up.
Yeah. If Nebraska's going to beat Michigan, it's going to be ugly. Michigan kind of wants to play ugly anyway. That kind of lends itself to keeping it close late. Yeah. I'm not saying Nebraska's going to win, But an ugly game lends itself to keeping it close late. It's like those basketball teams, like those old Cincinnati teams that would score like 50 points a game.
Oh, geez.
Like those Mick Cronin teams
God.
that were just total like rock fights. Yeah. And it's like they were pretty good, but they were never going to beat you by more than like 8 because 8 was about 10% of, or it was like 20% of their total points for the game. Like that kind of, not quite to that same degree.
Well, if you want to make it more modern, I mean, you watch Tony Bennett's Virginia squads.
Yeah,
I mean,
right?
they'd rather play with rocks than basketball.
They love the rock fight, but guess what happens when the rock fight doesn't go well? UMBC.
Tell them.
That's what happens when the rock fight doesn't go well for you. You lose to a 16 seed.
That's right.
Right. So listen, I'm not saying
you're saying.
I'm not.
Say it. Ravi.
Nebraska beats Michigan this week.
Cut it off.
Let's go. No, but stylistically, Michigan plays in a way that lends itself to keeping it close late.
Yeah.
And if you can get to that point, if you can get to the fourth quarter and it's within a possession or 10 points, I'd be in for that. Sign me up for that right now.
Yeah, I think you saw that a couple of years ago. I don't think it was a very pretty game at all.
No.
And Nebraska had the chance to win that game, guys. I don't know if you remember, but
is that 32-29? Does that sound something like that?
And even 32-29
doesn't really do justice to what it was.
No, I don't think it did, and I don't think it'll do justice to what you're going to see next Saturday. I think. What are you thinking? Like a 23-17 type of. That's kind of what I'm feeling in my oats right now. It's like a 23-17.
I could see it.
23-14.
If I could see somewhere like 23-14, 26-17.
Yeah, make it weird.
Yeah, give me some of that.
26-16. Ugh. Two point conversions.
No, there's a safety in there. Get out of there.
Oh, you're right. A couple of these. You're right.
No, I mean, like it could be kind of a strange score, strange game. If it's, like I said, within 7 to 10 in the fourth quarter, I think you would take that and see what happens.
And I think with Michigan wanting to keep it ugly, opposite of what you saw with La Tech today, where La Tech has a bunch of shifty, fast guys.
Yeah, they want to get out in space on the perimeter.
Yeah.
Michigan kind of just wants to beat your head in. Like, that's kind of what they want to do.
And those missed tackles that we saw today probably won't be seen next week.
I mean, listen, Blake Corum's not an easy guy to tackle.
Blake Corum is Blake
J.J.
Corum.
McCarthy's not an easy guy to tackle. Edwards not an easy guy to tackle.
It's true.
But if you lend yourself to playing ugly and getting yourself in the mud a little bit, I think that's a place Nebraska wants to be.
Matt Rule, you heard him this past week talking about he likes it wet. He wants it mucky. He likes it.
He does. He wants to snow. Hopefully, hope to God not snowing on September 30th.
Oof.
But you know what I mean.
Sure. Let's go.
Rain. Let's stick with the rain.
Snow.
Let's stick with the rain. Let's stick with the rain.
Turf.
Let's make it a little messy. I think that's where Nebraska wants to play this game. So we'll see what happens there. But we've been going for about an hour, so we're going to call it a day.
Hey, just real quick, I want to give a shout out to Timmy Bleak Road. Come on, give a shout out to Timmy
Bleak Road. Fake kick, baby.
One rushing attempt for 10 yards, 10 yards per carry. Timmy Bleak Road.
If Ethan Piper's foot hadn't got out of the way, that's a house call.
That's right.
That's a house call, baby. So we appreciate you, Timmy Bleak Road. We appreciate you sticking in there. Jared, I appreciate you joining me today. Make sure you hit the No Block, No Rock podcast up. They do great stuff over there. You can listen to me every weekday morning with Damon Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, and ESPN Tri-Cities. We will be back with you again next week after the Michigan game. Until then, go Nebraska.
Go Big Red.